My name is Daniel Duplantis. I am from Bayou Blue, Louisiana. My home parish is St. Louis Catholic Church. I grew up there all my life. I have a twin brother. We are fraternal twins, although we look very similar. And we have a younger sister, Emily. Mom is a fifth grade teacher, and dad is a credit union branch manager. He's been in banking for 20 plus years. Also works on the school board. Education is definitely a big part of the family because of mom and dad. I graduated in 2012 from Central Lafourche High School. I entered McNeese State University right out of high school to pursue music education. I gave it a year there and discerned that that was not for me. And I entered St. Joseph Seminary College in 2013. And 2 days from today, I will be graduating with my Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy and the liberal arts. One of the things I always tell my brother seminarians who are out of state or not from this area, I say there's no place like Houma. And I firmly believe that because what is there not to love about HoumaThibodaux? Every time I bring brother seminarians home from Mardi Gras or various holidays, I just show them around the diocese, and there's something that they always fall in love with here. And I think particularly what I love about HoumaThibodaux and what makes me look forward to serving this diocese is the depth of the culture. We've been here for over 200 years as a culture. And that culture is so deeply rooted in the area that I think you not only have to have a certain respect for the culture here, but a certain appreciation of that culture to really be an effective priest in the HoumaThibodaux diocese, because it's such a unique culture. But the people are what make this diocese. And, I've gotten to serve in several parishes across the diocese since I joined the seminary. And just getting to meet various people, you meet some of the most down-to-earth people on earth here. And I think the best way to summarize it is that HoumaThibodaux truly is God's country. For me growing up in my family, the Mass was definitely the center of our spiritual life. We were always faithful Mass goers, and I remember just always looking forward to going to Mass on the weekends. And I think it was there that I really got to experience the community aspect of the Universal Church. And especially that's where my love for the priesthood began, was just there at Mass. Whenever I began altar serving in fourth grade, that really took my spirituality to the next level. Because for me, the best way for me to be or to have that conscious, active participation in the liturgy for me was serving the Mass, constantly thinking about, what everything's being used for, and especially in the duties of a sacristan that I've been able to take on in the last several years, being able to just meditate on and contemplate the different uses of various vessels and sacramentals in the Mass really helps you as a preparation for when you actually serve the Mass to understand the sanctity of what's going on. And for me, altar serving was always a great way for me to pray the Mass as a layperson. I think my spirituality really took another giant leap after my confirmation retreat. That retreat really kind of gave me the fire for the faith. And really what it meant to be Catholic. It was there that I really began to start praying more, praying in different ways, really getting into things like the Rosary. When I got to my first year of college, when I was at McNeese, I began praying the Liturgy of the Hours for the first time, and it was amazing kind of plugging myself into the prayer of the Universal Church. Knowing that the Pope is praying these prayers, everyone around the world is praying these prayers. As a way of really keeping myself in union with the Universal Church. I thought this was a beautiful way to pray. While I was at McNeese, I started making holy hours for the first time. And just having that time in silence, where I really never cultivated that before college. Taking that time out of my schedule to really sit there and just be with the Lord. And, not really even having some kind of structured prayer, just sitting there in His presence. I really feel that the Lord speaks to us in silence. And one of the things that I read in my modern writers course in seminary this semester was that silence speaks volumes, and that if we live in silence long enough, that silence becomes louder than we think, and we're able to listen to silence. And oftentimes the voice that comes to us in that silence is the voice of God. And for me, that was very important with making the ultimate decision to go into the seminary. And more specifically, with how I got into the seminary. I remember wanting to be a priest as young as 4 years old. I would play mass. I was one of those kids. And everyone knew growing up that I had a great love for the priesthood. In fact, when I was 7 years old, right after my first communion, our pastor was re-signed, and before he left our parish, he gave my brother and I each one of his stoles. And to this day, I still have that stole. And it's a white stole, so I'm hoping maybe to be ordained with the very first stole I received when I was 7 years old. So he had the fire of the priesthood. I think that's really what made me fall in love with it. He was passionate about what he did. And ever since then, people had been praying for me and saying, if that's what you want to do, you're going to make a great priest. I really didn't start seriously discerning priesthood until high school. I went to youth rally and did the vocations call, and had dated a little bit in high school, but at the same time kind of always feeling in the back of my mind that I was called to something else. And it was at that confirmation retreat my junior year of high school that I really kind of decided that I was going to do that serious discernment, and I joined the Ignite group here in Houma-Thibodaux, which was fantastic because I got to meet guys I'd already met before, that, hey, I know you from band, I know you from Quiz Bowl, and we're all here discerning the same path. And it was such a relief to know that there are guys very similar to myself, and we're all here because we're trying to answer the same question: is God calling me to be a priest, or if not, what is He calling me to? And being part of that group was definitely a great step in my discernment of priesthood. After high school, I planned to pursue music education. I loved music in high school. So I gave it a year at McNeese. But as much as I love music, I realized for me it was more of a hobby, and not something that I want to sit there, especially with the abstract parts of music, like the music theory. I just realized that that's not what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I finally gave it that time in prayer, and said, Lord, if this is the right time for me to enter the seminary, then I'll give it a shot. I'll never forget the day that I began the application process. It was February 11th, 2013. It was the day that Pope Benedict announced his resignation. Father Josh jokingly said he found out you were coming in, so he decided to vacate his position. Definitely a very distinctive day for me, but it was a day that really changed my life for the better. During my first year of seminary, I felt another call as well. And God had put a great desire in my heart in high school for the military. I was in junior ROTC in high school for 2 years. And when I entered the seminary, my uncle, who retired from the Army, told me that the military is very much hurting for priests. And he said that I want you to at least, give some thought to becoming a chaplain. He said, you have the gifts for it. And he said, with what you did in JROTC, he said you'd fit very well with that. So I began to pray with that. And not long after Bishop Fobb became our ordinary in Houma-Thibodaux, I met with him and discussed the possibility. And we discerned together that it would be something worth looking at. So I went to a retreat in San Francisco, California, for the Archdiocese for the Military Services, and it was incredible. Getting to meet some of the chaplains, and these were some of the most fantastic priests I've ever met. Guys who are just very solid in their vocation and really enjoy the work that they do in the military. So I became co-sponsored in June of 2015, and I will be commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force this summer. So looking at that in the future is definitely a great discernment, in line with just, am I still called to be a priest in general? But it's definitely, I think, the best of both worlds, and if that's what I'm called to, I think I'll definitely enjoy it. I think entering the seminary, most seminarians are very excited to start. It's something new. It's exciting, especially for guys who have kind of always had that desire to be a priest. You're finally there. You're finally giving yourself the opportunity to go to seminary. I find that the longer you stay in, you really start to get through the trials, and there's always trials with seminary. Seminary is meant to break you, but it's meant to break you so that you can rebuild, and it can rebuild you into a priest, but only if you let it do that. So academic formation is very rigorous, and definitely something that I needed to break myself of. And just to realize that, you're not always going to have the best grades, because you have to balance everything. And seminary teaches you how to do that, how to balance your prayer life, your academic life, your human formation, making sure you're keeping yourself healthy, happy, holy, and healthy. And then also your pastoral formation, because that's the reason ultimately why we're doing this. But I've had great experiences in the seminary, and experiences that I would not have had otherwise. I've gotten to travel to Europe, I've gotten to travel to Guatemala, and literally travel from coast to coast in the span of less than 2 months. So seminary has given me great opportunities to see the universal church, and to experience the many different cultures that she ministers to. And even in the seminary, you experience those cultures. And for me, that's been one of the greatest joys, is being able to participate in the different multicultural aspects of the seminary. I was able to participate for the last 3 years with the Vietnamese lion dance group for our Tet celebration, which was very fun. I got to beat this massive drum, and ultimately just learn about this new culture. And then I was the conductor for the Spanish choir this year. And the beauty of it is that you don't even really have to speak the language. But just being there and helping to worship in that liturgy opens you up to the culture. And that's the biggest thing I think about seminary, is that you have to be open to these other cultures, because ultimately we're going to be ministering to these cultures. And that's the nature of the Catholic Church in the United States, is that there's so many different cultures that we're going to be called to minister to. But seminary has been a great experience just to grow as a man. And oftentimes what I'll say is, I became an adult at McNeese, but I became a man in seminary. Because seminary teaches you, especially in the formation program, how to be a son of the Father, to be a bridegroom to the church, and ultimately to be a father to the children of the church. So you become a better man. There's no time wasted in the seminary. So that even if a man is not called to the seminary, he should be comforted in knowing that the seminary is going to make him a better man, no matter what, as long as you let the formation do that. As I graduate from St. Ben's and start moving into Notre Dame, I'm really looking forward to the specific formation of becoming Christ the priest. And usually college seminary and theologiate seminary focus on two different aspects. One of them, college seminary, is really focused on becoming Christ the man, forming you into just an overall good man. Because ultimately Christ was human as well as divine. So we're trying to form ourselves into Christ the man. So that way, once we get to major seminary for theology, we can focus on building on that formation. The human formation is the foundation of all other aspects of formation, because our humanity is ultimately the way through which we exercise our ministry. Christ himself was man, and that's how he exercised his ministry. So going into Notre Dame, I'm really looking forward to learning what the church teaches, now that I have a good foundation of why we believe some of the things we teach, to really get into the depths of what the church has to offer, so as to give it to the rest of the church. It's not something just for the priest to just kind of learn himself and then just keep it. It's meant to be given out, because there's such a depth of the treasury that we have as a church in theology. Every seminarian discerns priesthood, I think, more for the theology aspect, because that's what we want. That's the product. We see the product before we see the process that brings about that product. So that's what we look forward to, is actually learning the theology, getting some really hands-on pastoral experiences, In particular for me at Notre Dame, what I'm looking forward to is this new pastoral program we have at St. Rita's Church. We're partnering with the church now. We'll be doing pastoral assignments there at the church. We'll be staffing the church. In a sense, we really take the responsibility of ministering to that parish in particular. That is our parish while we're at Notre Dame. So we'll be the catechist, the pastoral council. We'll be serving the masses. We'll be opening and closing the church every day. So in a sense, it really gives us that responsibility of actually having a parish and being part of that. Yeah. When I think about being a priest, God willing, in the next 4 years, I definitely feel that I want to be a very sacramental priest. And I think a lot of that has to do with that calling to the military chaplaincy as well, because a lot of what chaplains do is sacramental ministry, whereas we're there to say daily masses, to hear confessions. I think those are two of the most important things that you hear from servicemen. But just in general, as a priest, I really look forward to doing hands-on work. Especially, one of my favorite sacraments is the sacrament of reconciliation, and for me, it's the gateway to the Eucharist. By coming to reconciliation and being absolved of our sins, it allows us to more worthily receive Christ in the Eucharist. So I definitely want to be a merciful priest, and that's been a great reflection for me in this year of mercy, is being a merciful priest. And also reflecting on what Fulton Sheen describes the priest as being priest and victim, or sacerdos et hostia, because the priest is, just as Christ was victim, just as he was crucified as the new Paschal Lamb, so is the priest. There is always going to be trials, but I think through that suffering, it purifies the soul, especially in that of the priest, that if a priest is not suffering, if he's living a life of comfort, I think that can be a great danger to the priest's personal salvation. So definitely for me, just looking forward to being a priest is being with the people. And I find that very easy to do here in HoumaThibodaux. And having grown up here and having immersed myself in the culture, I find it very easy just to go to be welcomed into someone's home. Because that's just the nature of the culture here. People are always welcoming priests into their home. And the people have a great love for their priest in HoumaThibodaux. And that it definitely makes it a lot easier for us discerning priesthood for this diocese, to know that we are welcomed here. And for me, that's what I'm looking forward to in the future of being a priest for HoumaThibodaux, is really working with these very unique families and being a part of their family life. Because that's so evident in this diocese. Having those families here who invite you to be part of their own family. And that's, I think, one of the most beautiful things I'm looking forward to about being a priest in HoumaThibodaux.